Over the course of history, bladesmithing has changed a lot. From the days of sifting through iron sand in order to make bars of steel to now, where blacksmiths can buy pre-laminated steel from a factory. But throughout all of the years of Japanese bladesmithing, the most change has actually happened in about the last 100 years. New technology has created new types of steel, and since there's no real need for swords anymore, blacksmiths are forging tools, kitchen knives, and straight razors instead. In the last century, 6 makers stand above the rest for really pushing the industry forward. Today, we're going to do a deep dive on how they've changed the industry forever. We're going to start by talking about somebody who's so important that the entirety of Sanjo probably wouldn't exist without him. His name is Kosuke Iwasaki. Iwasaki-san is widely considered the father of smithing in Niigata because of how invested he was in metallurgy and the science behind bladesmithing itself. He founded his workshop Sanjo Seizakusho in 1947, and he chose to make straight razors, specifically the Kamisori straight razors. He studied meticulously, and amazingly, he was accepted to the University of Tokyo not once, but twice. Now, my excitement there comes with the need for a little bit of an explanation. Nicknamed the National Seven, the Imperial Universities, so 7 former Imperial Universities, are among some of the best universities in Japan. And not only just in Japan, but they're globally ranked as some of the best universities in the world. The University of Tokyo is widely considered the best university among those best universities. With that understood, imagine not being accepted just one time, but twice for 2 completely different subjects. Kosuke Iwasaki went to university to understand 2 different things: metallurgy and ancient Japanese literature. Now, metallurgy I think is probably pretty self-explanatory. When you're a blacksmith, understanding the atomic composition of a metal is probably pretty helpful. But for those of you as confused as I was when I read, oh, he studied literature as well, it's actually a pretty simple explanation. He went and studied literature so that he could decode ancient Japanese swordsmithing scrolls and texts in order to better understand not only the scientific side of metallurgy, but the traditional side of it as well. He wanted every single piece of information that he could possibly get about metallurgy and swordsmithing, and so he set out and got it by any means necessary. He became a master of metals, and he started passing down his knowledge to literally anyone that would listen. In doing so, he actually started a new era of bladesmithing. He ended the era of family secrets and secret techniques and ended up creating an era of community and sharing, especially in the city of Sanjo. He encouraged people to share the knowledge that they had accrued, and in doing so, he actually sped up innovation significantly instead of slowing it to an almost crawl for the centuries that it had been before. Iwasaki-san was also the very first blacksmith to really bring the scientific method into blacksmithing. He provided information on the chemical makeup of certain different types of steels, and many blacksmiths still use the research and data that he provided almost 100 years ago. Everyone in Sanjo has been affected by Kosuke Iwasaki, and even a lot of blacksmiths in the whole country have been affected by his research. Some notable names just in Sanjo itself are Masashi Yamamoto, Toshihiro Wakui, Shigefusa, and Tadafusa, the company, all of whom use the scientific method to improve their blades. The decision for him to really study and break down bladesmithing into just science in general has really cemented him as one of the most important figures in bladesmithing in Japan in all of its history. And we still feel the effects even now. VG10, VG Zeos, and SG2 all come from one place: Takefu Special Steels. Now, I know that they're not actually bladesmiths, but to say that they haven't had an effect on the bladesmithing industry would be just a complete lie. It cannot be understated how much they actually do for the bladesmithing industry as a whole. They are the royalty of Echizen, and for those of you who love the stories and love the history of knife making, know that Takefu Knife Village is one of the most important places for bladesmithing in all of Japan. Because of their influence over this extremely important location, they are one of the most respected steel manufacturers globally, and they have patents on things like using a layer of nickel between stainless and carbon steel for knives that have a carbon steel core and a stainless steel cladding. They produce pre-laminated steels, like what Makoto Kurosaki uses for his coreless Damascus Cayenne. Makoto-san then takes that pre-laminated steel and sharpens it to absolute perfection. So not only does it look really cool, but it also cuts like an absolute dream. That wouldn't be possible without Takefu Special Steels. They produce both sanmai and nimai steels so that blacksmiths can make double bevel knives or single bevel knives, depending on what their style is. And they're a huge reason why stainless steel is so popular these days, with the VG10 and the SG2 just outperforming a lot of carbon steels. Their extremely intense research and development program involves the blacksmiths like Takumi Ikeda and Yu Kurosaki, who then take those steels, try them, and give them feedback on what needs to change, the hardness, how it sharpens, whether it was workable or difficult to use on a spring hammer. These are all valuable assets to Takefu Special Steels, who then take that information and rework what they were doing. Through this meticulous process, they've proven that stainless steel can be just as good, if not better than carbon steels, and can outperform it 8 out of 10 times. Now, I know that a lot of haters are gonna come for me for saying that, but SG2 is pretty damn good steel, and VG's EOS is really easy to sharpen. They truthfully are the innovators behind most modern stainless steels, and I love to think that a lot of blacksmiths actually exist because of them. And one of the makers who has benefited greatly from Takefu Special Steels is Takayuki Shibata. Shibata-san's impact is not that he uses Takefu Special Steels. Shibata has revolutionized sharpening across Japan. It starts with something called a differential grit sharpening, which many of you have probably heard of. Shibata-san realized that there was a problem with some knives feeling far too smooth to cut through tougher objects like tomato skins or pepper skins after they had been sharpened to a really high grit. They felt smooth on things like fish or meat, but when it came to those tougher vegetables or those more dense ingredients, it just wasn't working. He desperately wanted to solve this problem, so he decided to try something kind of out of the box. He put one side at a really fine edge and the other side at a little bit of a coarser edge. What he ended up achieving is this really smooth, amazing feeling through fish and meat. But when it came to those tougher vegetables, it was enough to bite through, hence his new stone, the bitey finisher. Being able to cut through meat, fish, and vegetables all with the same knife and feel equally as smooth through both categories is revolutionary. This is now one of the most popular forms of sharpening worldwide, and many of the staff here at Knifewear, that's what we do on our own knives for our own home use. Now, the thing about Shibata-san is that he didn't just revolutionize sharpening, he also revolutionized retailers. He founded a company called Masakage, and Masakage was designed to bring a whole bunch of blacksmiths under the same umbrella so that they could forge different lines of knives. Now, this fact in itself wasn't really revolutionary at the time, but something that Shibata-san did is he decided to share the names of the blacksmiths that made those lines. Commonly, a brand before Masakage would have a whole bunch of blacksmiths working on different lines, but they would all just be under the same name. What Shibata-san did is he made sure that the blacksmith's name was shared on every single knife line, like the Masakage Kumo made by Takumi Ikeda, or the Masakage Shimo made by Yu Kurosaki, or even the Masakage Yuki made by Yoshimi Kato. This decision made Masakage's customers and purchasers feel like they knew the knife a lot better, knowing exactly who it came from. Customers could then start buying different knife lines from the same blacksmith. Despite them being different, they didn't have to match because they were all from the same person. This connection between customer and blacksmith actually ended up skyrocketing the value of Masakage knives. Now, no matter who you buy your knife from, you'll be able to see exactly who made it right there in the box. Shibata-san has a motto, art over beauty. And this motto allowed him to produce some of the sleekest, most modern and beautiful knives that just function incredibly. And it also helped him create an amazing and talented community of blacksmiths all around him. He makes the list based on the fact that he's not only had an impact on sharpening, but he's also had a profound impact on how people purchase knives, especially here in the West. The man, the myth, the modern rock star, Yu Kurosaki. Yu Kurosaki is continually inspiring the younger generation that their creativity is not only wanted, but necessary to move forward in the industry that they're in. He has many young men working in his workshop, and he's constantly pushing them to innovate and create, no matter if they think that they're good enough or not. Genuinely, Yu Kurosaki's biggest impact is he made the industry look cool. He's inspired younger people that want to work in the bladesmithing industry that knife making can be really cool and badass and innovative, and doesn't have to be seen as some ancient and slow art form. He's changed how we see a knife. And I'm not talking just, oh, it cuts things. His creations make us go, oh, it doesn't have to just, well, look like a knife. Kurosaki-san decided that knife making was just too boring. And you can tell immediately when you walk into his showroom that he wanted to give it a modern and beautiful twist. He has captivated people across the globe, and every time someone sees one, they go, wow, this is incredible. And he proves that just because it's an ancient art doesn't mean it doesn't have room for new ideas and creative thinking. Anyone who knows Yu Kurosaki knows that he's always been an early adopter of new steels. Although he has been known in the past to make some phenomenal carbon steel knives like the Shimo, he often uses brand new stainless steels from Takefu Special Steels as well. The Gecko is a prime example of a brand new steel taken and put into this modern, sleek, simple design that you can never mistake for anyone else's but Kurosaki's. Now, potentially the funniest man on this list is Shosui Takeda. Takeda does something really interesting with his knives, and when I say interesting, I mean he's literally always trying to make his blades thinner. To achieve this, he actually forges them with a triangular hammer and then grinds them down to be as thin as possible in something called an S-grind. But Takeda's S-grind is a little bit different than most standard S-grinds, and a lot of people on knife forums, things like that, call it a zero grind, which I'm going to disagree. That doesn't really exist. Takeda's S-grind is really interesting because it's only kind of an S-grind. It's really, really thin, and so when it is actually shaped like an S, you can only kind of tell, and that helps with food release and making it thinner. That means from the very spine of the knife, there is virtually no taper all the way down to the very edge, which makes them laser thin. He creates these crazy thin knives to ensure that once it gets to the customer, they are crazy, crazy sharp. His method of sharpening is even different as well. He sharpens double bevel knives to actually only have one bevel, where most knives have a consistent taper from somewhere the midpoint up all the way down to the very edge, and then they have another taper. He actually only has one V angle at the very edge. This exceptional grind actually helps make the knife sharper. More fragile, yes, but the sharpening actually rivals some of the greatest sharpeners in the world. Because of Takeda-san, many blacksmiths are trying to outdo him and make these crazy thin knives. And they do all of that just to rival something that, well, he's already mastered. And along with his intense grinding and sharpening techniques, Shosui Takeda actually learned English very early on in his career. Although he wasn't the first Japanese blacksmith to start selling Japanese knives to the West, he was definitely one of the early adopters traveling through the US, trying to get his name out there and speaking to people in English to be able to cement himself as one of the most legendary knife makers of all time. When the surge and desire for Japanese knives in the West happened about 15 years ago, he was already in the retailer's good books. Every retailer wanted to carry his knives, and that made him absolutely legendary. Now, word to the wise, Takeda knives are now a collector's item. If you have one, hang on to it. And if you have the opportunity to get one, snatch up that opportunity before it passes you by. Because I guarantee the second that they drop on a website, 10 minutes later, they will all be gone. Now, some of the most underrated knives on the market right now are knives with a really high bevel. These knives start really thick in the spine and then taper down to have a crazy thin edge. This is a very different approach than what Takeda is taking. They may be thick, but they cut like lasers. Now, some names that you might recognize: Myojin, Maruyama, Yauchi, Tadokoro, and Nishida. All of these sharpeners come from the same lineage, and that's the family tree of Hiromi Morimoto, otherwise known as Morihiro. This tall bevel and long taper method that he's adopted has completely taken over Sakai, with some of our favorite retailers like Hado Sakai following in his footsteps. This style has led to some of the most laser-like knives on the market today. He, like many of the people on this list, is an excellent teacher and chose not to gatekeep his style of sharpening, but instead share it with as many people as were willing to listen. He chose his community over his personal gain, and to me, that's a very admirable trait, especially in a country where many things, especially knife and sword related, have been gatekept for so many years. His goal is and has always been to make sure that knives are much easier to resharpen once it's time. And that's why you'll notice that if you get a knife from Sakai, usually they're extremely flat and much easier to thin back out once you've sharpened them 2 or 3 times. He has had a huge impact on the city of Sakai, and with so many famous sharpeners coming from his tutelage, I would say he's definitely a master of his craft. We carry some knives from Morihiro's lineage, like any Hado knife, for example. With Hados, you'll notice that distinct thick spine and thin edge, and that extremely tall taper. But there's also some others, like Naohito Myojin, who works very closely with Satoshi Nakagawa to create some of the most stunning and stunningly sharp knives you will ever use. Both of these companies have a direct link to Hiromi Morimoto, and recently in a DM when Naoto was asking Myojin about this video, he even said how much of an impact he's even had on Sakai. These 6 people have had such a profound impact on what we do here at Knifewear, and we want to thank every single one of them, and of course all of you for supporting our videos and allowing us to do what we do on a daily basis. We owe them tremendous gratitude. So thank you, you 6, and of course every maker that we work with. If there's any really influential figures that you think we missed, leave us a comment. And if you want to buy any of the knives from any of these makers, check out our website, knifewear.com. If there's anything else you'd like to see us do a deep dive into, again, let us know in the comments or send us an email. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon. Oh man.